Let's now talk about what is arguably the most important part of a hypothesis test, which is the decision rule. Now, when it comes to the decision rule, there are two approaches. We have the p-value approach and then we have the critical value approach. I'm going to talk about how we apply each of these approaches to the three types of tests that we have. Okay, so let's first look at the p-value approach. Remember that we have lower-tailed tests, right? We have upper tail tests, and then we have two tail tests, right? Now, in all of these cases, the decision rule is to reject the null if the p-value is less than alpha. Remember, alpha is the level of significance, right? So it's the same decision rule for the three types of tests. Now we know what alpha is, right? So the problem now becomes, how do we know our p-value? Right? Okay, so let's look at the lower tail tests. When you do a lower tail test, typically you're gonna have a negative test statistic. So let's put that test statistic on the standard normal. If this is your test statistic, then the p-value is the area under the standard normal curve to the left of your test statistic. Okay. For an upper tail test, typically you're gonna have your test statistic being a positive number. So you would then calculate the p-value by, suppose this is your test statistic. Okay. Then the p-value is the area under the curve to the right of your test statistic. And here we're talking about the z distribution, right? Now, when you do a two-tailed test, the test statistic can be negative, the test statistic can be positive, right? There's not a single rule. So let's first look at the case where the test statistic is negative. If the test statistic is negative, let's say it's right here, the first thing you want to do is to identify the negative of the test statistic. So suppose, for example, if your test statistic is negative 2.25, right, then the negative of this number is positive 2.25. Okay, so let me put here negative a test statistic. Okay, once you have done that, the p-value is going to be the sum of the two outside areas. Okay, now what if you have a positive test statistic? It's the same idea, right? If you have a positive test statistic, first off, you put it on a standard normal distribution. Right. So if this is your test statistic, the first thing you want to do is you want to identify the negative version of it. So the negative version is going to be on this side. Then the p-value is going to be the sum of the two outside areas. Okay. So let me put this on here. Sum of shaded areas okay. So once you have identified the p-value, you will apply the decision rule up here to reach a decision about the test, to reach a conclusion. Okay.